Good day, everyone. My name is Sabelo Shope. I am with TIM Group. TIM Group, we are passionate about young people. We want to see them develop and become the people that they are supposed to be. We focus on 4 areas, which is entrepreneurship, education, personal development, and leadership. I am not alone. I am with the one and only, the co-founder of TIM Group, Mr. Dlamini. You can introduce yourself, sir.
Hello everyone, my name is Musa Dlamini. I'm a co-founder here at TIM Group and we're excited to be hosting this couple of series of videos which is called Thinking with TIM Group. And in today's series we'll be talking about the demographic dividend, which is a phenomenon that we're going to dive into quite briefly with Mr. Flope here.
Let's define first and foremost what demographic dividend is.
Well, the demographic dividend, by just a way of definition, is a window of opportunity for accelerated economic growth, which results from a nation having a large percentage of its population being people who are in the working age and having a very small percentage of people in the population being dependent on the working age population. So if any nation, if any community is going to be having that kind of a demographic structure in its population, those kinds of demographics in its population structure, that is called then a demographic dividend.
Sure. So basically, for a country to harvest the demographic, it has to have invested in education, that is, have quality education. It has to have created enough and quality job opportunities for the young people who are supposed to get into the workforce. Now, what does that mean for a country like Swaziland, and what does it mean for the country, for a continent like Africa? I know we have read about it that Africa is the youngest continent in the whole world. Africa has many young people compared to all the people who will be in the future, not very long from now, are supposed to be dependent. That is, the young people are supposed to assist and provide those old people who have reached above the youth age.
What that means for any population, really, not just Swaziland and Africa, because if we're to look, for instance, at Swaziland today, if we're looking at people who are above the ages of 65, these are people who are now going to be depending on the younger population for their upkeep. It's only 5% of the whole population of the country. And if we're looking at people who are basically below the ages of 35, it's actually 72% of the whole country. And if we're looking at people who are below the ages, I believe, of 20, it's about 40% of the whole country. So you can see that a large chunk of the population is actually of the working age. People who are above 65 are only 5% of the population. This is for Swaziland. And in Africa, it is projected that half of the population growth that will be happening in the world, about half of it will be happening in Africa by the year 2050. And right now, Africa is 1.2 billion people total. And the median age for Africa is about 19 years, which means that about half of the people on the continent are below the ages of 19. And that just shows you what the structure of Africa is in terms of the population. So if you've got a population structure like that, it means you have to start investing in the younger population now, so that when they come of age, when they come to be of working age, then they are able to get those quality jobs, they are empowered, they are able to take the right decisions, so that everything that they do is in sync with taking the economy of the continent, of their specific countries forward.
Sure. In fact, the reason we're having this conversation today, is for us to think, and not only just think, but think into action, because the world is not changed by our opinions; it is changed by our actions, the things that we do. So it is very important for even the viewer watching us right there, to be able to be thinking about this conversation, is because the demographic is, as a dividend, is the dividend from this demographic is not automatic. You have to plan it. You have to zero in on the areas that you think that will work for that country, and that will work for Africa as a continent. And then invest heavily on that. Be laser focused in investing on those areas. Now, if you look, because this demographic, it can be a dividend and it can be a boom, like a total disaster. So there are two sides into it. Now, we have been talking about countries like Tunisia.
Yeah.
You remember in Tunisia 2010,
Yeah.
where in what now is called the Arab Spring.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Arab Spring actually was started by a young person, 26 years of age. I think it was Mohamed Bouaziz. What happened there is this gentleman was selling his fruit on the street. Normal, selling his fruit on the street. And then one day, while he was doing that, which he does every day, the police confiscated his fruits. They took it, he went and tried and blow a whistle, reported that they've taken his fruit. And what happened is no one listened to him because we're young people who've got energy, we want to be heard. To him, that was the end of the world. He took petrol, burned himself alive. Now, this is what is called an Arab Spring today. It was started by Mohamed Bouaziz by killing himself.
Yeah.
Presidents have resigned. Presidents have had flee countries. Millions of people have died just because of that thing. But that's the bad side of what if we are not investing and we are not really planning as people, as government, as private sector, as parents into investing into the demographic, that is investing into our young people. That is the bad thing that can happen. But from your side, what good can happen from a demographic?
Oh yeah, sure. Because the demographic dividend can only be realized if, for instance, like you are saying, we have prepared beforehand before we reach that tipping point as a nation or as a continent even. But we have also some very good examples of nations that have actually prepared for the demographic dividend, and because they were prepared within actually one generation, they were able to take their countries from being third world nations to being first world nations. For instance, we can look at the issue. The case of South Korea. South Korea after after Second World War. They were being together with North Korea, and after they were divided as a nation, they became known, or rather they became classified as a third world nation because of the devastation of the war and everything. But within 1 year, within 60 years, they were able to be moved from being a third world nation to be a first world nation. Why? Because South Korea, right after the war, they made a resolution as a country to invest in places that have got rapid technological growth. So they invested in technology, they invested in education, because a large chunk of their population as well during that time was young people. And now 60 years after that, South Korea is a first world nation.
But what you talked about, when did South Korea came out of gain their independence?
They gained their independence, I believe, at the same time that Ghana also did. And we can look at Africa and say, okay, there was South Korea that gained her independence after Second World War, devastation of the war, and then this Ghana, this side, who also had to fight a little bit, and they also gained their independence. But then Ghana is still considered a third world nation, and South Korea is now
in fact,
a first world nation.
Do we have a first world country in the African continent?
No, not really. Technically speaking, not quite. Even South Africa, they are quite close with infrastructure, but they are so much behind on other issues as well. So they are still not considered a first world nation as well. So the whole continent is just not there. It's just not there. Yeah.
I think now we have to make it open and make it realistic to all of us that we all have a role to play. Government, private sector, families, churches. All of us have a role to play, So what do you think are the roles that we all have to play?
Young people are supposed to be empowered. That's the first thing. You have to empower people so that they know what decisions to take and how to take those decisions. And then you've got to put in place quality education, because quality education is important in preparing people for quality jobs. And then thirdly, you have to put in place quality jobs so that once you have an educated nation, what good is that to you as a country if we do not have the quality jobs that are going to be able to give these people the right kind of rewards and returns? So these are the three key areas: education, personal empowerment, and quality jobs. So now what we have to be looking at as countries, as churches, as community leaders, as just individuals on the streets is, what role can I play? How can I empower young people in my community? I'm an entrepreneur, but how can I empower young people? How can a church empower young people, right? How can a school empower young people? How can I influence education as someone on the street, right? Just as a lay person. How can I empower education just as a member of parliament, really? That is government. Now, those are the things we have to, what can I do to create quality jobs as an entrepreneur? So these are the three key questions we have to ask ourselves, and we have to do what we can, where we can, no matter how little, no matter how big, but we have to all do something so that we set the stage. Government will never be enough, they'll never be fast enough.
In the next videos, we'll be looking more into the topics, or rather the things that we believe as, you know, as TIM Group, as Ted Musa and myself, that if we invest, be it in government or ourselves, young people, or even our parents, if we invest on those things, you know, we can be able to really harness and get the best out of this dividend.
Yeah, sure. Next video, we're looking at issues like education, we're looking at issues like personal empowerment, we're looking at issues like entrepreneurship and the likes, which we believe are the pillars that we have to all invest in so that we're able to harness the demographic dividend. Otherwise, from us, TIM Group, it's been a pleasure being here with you. See you in the next video. Sure.